sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into a pretty wild legal battle that's going on in the music industry.
Yeah.
We're talking Drake versus his own record label, Universal Music Group.
UMG.
UMG. And it's not just your typical, celebrity squabble over money or contracts.
Right.
This case could actually have some really big implications for artistic freedom, defamation law, and really the whole balance of power between artists and the companies that they work with.
Absolutely. And it really all comes down to this one song that's at the center of this whole case.
Okay, so set the stage for us. Like, what's going on here? We know that Drake is suing UMG, but what exactly is he accusing them of?
Well, Drake's lawsuit is saying that UMG didn't just release the song knowing it could hurt his reputation. They actually promoted it despite knowing that Drake tried to get it featured in the Super Bowl halftime show.
Oh, wow. So the Super Bowl, I mean, come on, that's
yes, huge.
Yeah, that's massive exposure.
Huge.
So what is it about this song that's got Drake so fired up? What's the big deal?
Well, the song itself isn't actually included in the sources you provided, but it's pretty heavily implied that the lyrics and even the music video paint Drake in a really negative light.
Yeah.
Accusing him of something pretty serious. They're basically saying that he's a pedophile.
Wow. Okay, so I mean that is a serious accusation.
Absolutely.
And that definitely goes way beyond, sort of the typical back and forth that you see in a lot of like rap beefs or, kind of diss tracks and stuff like that.
Totally. This is like serious legal territory now.
Right. And that's what Drake is arguing. He's saying this is defamation.
Exactly.
So for those of us who, maybe aren't lawyers, can you break down like what exactly does it take to actually prove defamation in a case like this?
Sure. So to prove defamation, Drake's going to have to show a couple of things.
Okay.
First, the statements in the song have to be false.
Okay.
Second, they have to be published with some level of negligence or malice.
Okay.
And third, they actually had to cause him harm.
So it's not just that, the lyrics are negative or insulting. It's that it has to be proven that they knew it was false, that they knew it was damaging, and they still went ahead and promoted it.
Right. And that's where that Super Bowl thing comes back in.
Right.
His legal team is saying that them trying to push the song to that level is proof that they were acting with malice.
Okay, so what's UMG's defense? Are they just like, hey, man, it's just a song, like not our fault?
Well, it's a little more complicated than that.
Okay.
They're calling Drake's lawsuit frivolous litigation.
Okay.
Basically saying that this whole thing is a waste of the court's time.
Okay.
They're saying they'd never intentionally damage an artist's reputation, and they're bringing up this concept of rap battles.
Okay.
Almost like this is just part of the culture, part of the landscape.
Right, right.
Drake has done this kind of thing before. This is just how hip-hop works.
But Drake's team is saying, no, this goes way beyond just a typical rap beef.
Yeah. They're saying UMG crossed a line. This isn't just hurt feelings. This is real damage to his career, to his reputation.
And it's not just that. We know from the sources that this isn't Drake's first time suing UMG.
No, it's not.
He sued them before, right?
Yeah. A while back, he sued them and Spotify,
Okay.
claiming they were using bots to inflate the streaming numbers for that same song, not like us.
Wait, so bots to boost streams?
Yeah.
I mean, so was there already bad blood between Drake and his label even before this whole defamation lawsuit?
It really seems that way. Like, they haven't exactly had the best relationship.
Okay.
And this is just adding fuel to the fire.
Right, so it sounds like we got a real legal showdown on our hands?
Yeah.
But it's not just that this is affecting Drake's life outside of the courtroom too, right?
Yeah, he's had to hire extra security because of threats he's been getting since that song came out.
Okay.
And he's even mentioned that there have been shootings near his house in Toronto.
Wow. So this isn't just theoretical for him. It's like real world consequences.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, for anyone listening, how would you feel if a song painted you in such a negative light that it started impacting your life like that?
It's a good point. It really shows the power of music and media, that it can be used for good, but it can also be used to cause some serious damage.
Yeah, it really makes you think about, the responsibility that comes with having that kind of platform.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about artists as big as Drake or Kendrick Lamar.
It's a tough one, right? Like, we want to protect creative expression, but you also can't just let anyone say anything they want, especially if it's going to hurt somebody.
Right.
It's a fine line.
So let's zoom out a little bit. Like, what could this whole thing mean for the music industry as a whole? Like, how could this case actually impact things?
Well, this could have some serious ripple effects if Drake wins this thing.
Okay.
It could set a legal precedent that makes labels a lot more careful about what they release, even if it's coming from an artist who's known for pushing boundaries.
So it's almost like a free speech debate, but within the music world.
Yeah, exactly.
On one hand, you have the argument for just letting artists express themselves however they want.
Right.
But then on the other hand, you have this worry that freedom could be abused.
And that's really what the courts are going to have to figure out here.
Right.
Where do we draw the line? And what responsibility do these record labels have for the stuff they're putting out there?
Yeah. It's a tough question. And it's not just about the legal side of things either. Like, if labels start getting more cautious, could that end up stifling creativity? Could it lead to artists censoring themselves?
Yeah, that's a real concern. I mean, some artists and industry experts are worried that this whole thing, regardless of who wins, could create this atmosphere where everybody's afraid to do anything even remotely controversial because they're worried about getting sued.
Right. So it's like a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
You want to limit artistic freedom, but you also don't want to let people just use their platform to attack others without any consequences.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important to remember this isn't just some abstract debate for Drake. This is his life, his career, his reputation that's on the line here.
Right. And speaking of his career, how's all this playing out in the public eye? Like, what's the general reaction been?
Oh, it's definitely creating a lot of buzz. This case is everywhere. People are talking about it in the music industry and the media.
Yeah.
Everybody's got an opinion.
Yeah. Are people kind of choosing sides? Like Team Drake versus Team UMG?
Oh, absolutely. You see it all over social media, online forums, in the press. But I think beyond all that, beyond the fan reactions and the headlines, there's this deeper conversation happening about the role of record labels in this whole digital age.
That's interesting. So how are things changing for record labels these days?
Well, think about it. Like, we're not just talking about traditional record deals and album releases anymore, right?
Right.
We're in the age of streaming, viral hits, social media. A song can blow up overnight, and accusations, even if they're totally false, can spread like wildfire online.
That's true. It's a much faster-paced environment than it used to be, and a lot less controlled.
Exactly. And that creates all these new challenges for record labels. They're trying to figure out how to navigate this constantly shifting landscape while also dealing with artists who are way more independent and empowered than ever before.
So this Drake case is happening at a really interesting time for the music industry.
It really is.
It's like all these different forces are colliding at once. You've got artistic freedom, you've got defamation law, you've got the power of social media, and then you've got this changing relationship between artists and the companies that sign them.
You put it perfectly.
So what are some of the possible outcomes here? Like, what happens if Drake wins? What happens if UMG wins?
Well, practically speaking, Drake is looking for money from UMG.
Okay.
Financial damages. But more importantly, he wants to clear his name. He wants the court to say officially that those accusations in that song were false and that they were defamatory.
And if UMG wins, does that mean that they're basically off the hook when it comes to the content their artists put out?
It's not quite that simple. I mean, even if they win this specific case, it doesn't mean they're totally immune from getting sued in the future or that they have zero responsibility. But it would be a huge win for them.
Okay.
And it could embolden other labels to take a more hands-off approach to controversial stuff.
So this is bigger than just one song, one artist, one record label. This is about the whole music industry and how it's adapting to this new world.
100%. And it reminds us that the legal system, especially when you're talking about free speech and defamation, it's constantly having to evolve to keep up with the times.
Yeah, this deep dive has really made me see the music industry in a whole new light.
Yeah.
It's not just about the music anymore. It's about the law, the business, the technology, and the power dynamics between all these different players.
And yet at the heart of it all,
yeah,
it's still about the artists and their creative expression. But the question is, how do we protect that expression while also making sure it doesn't hurt other people?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. And I'm really curious to see how this case might help answer that question.
Me too. I think this is a landmark case that could have implications for the whole entertainment industry.
Oh.
It's forcing us to confront some really tough questions about artistic freedom, accountability, and the power of media in this digital age.
So what stands out to you as we consider the potential impact of this case? I think for me, what really stands out is that this isn't just a legal battle. It's a human story. We're talking about real people's lives.
Yeah.
You know, their reputations being affected by these accusations.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to get caught up in the legal arguments and the industry drama, But we can't forget that there's a human cost to all of this.
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder, could this case change how record labels handle a controversial content from their artists moving forward?
It's definitely possible. I mean, if Drake wins this,
Yeah.
it sends a message to labels that they can't just ignore potentially defamatory material,
Right.
even if it's coming from an artist who's known for pushing the envelope. They might start being a lot more careful about checking lyrics,
Okay.
consulting with lawyers,
Yeah.
really thinking about the consequences before they put a song out there.
Especially if it's coming from an artist who has a history of being provocative or controversial.
Exactly.
It also makes you think about the power dynamics between artists and their labels.
Yeah.
Historically, labels have had a lot of power,
Yeah.
often controlling the creative output and the public image of their artists.
Totally.
But cases like this one, where an artist is pushing back against their label,
Mm-hmm.
could that signal a shift in that balance?
It could. I mean, we're seeing artists become more aware of their own leverage,
Yeah.
their ability to control their own narrative.
Okay.
They're not just commodities anymore. They're
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, they're brands,
Yeah.
and they're not afraid to fight for their rights.
It's almost like this new generation of artists is saying, hey, we have a voice, we have rights, and we're not afraid to use them.
And they have the platforms to back it up.
Yeah.
Social media gives them a direct line to their fans.
Yeah.
They can build their own audiences. They can even release their music independently.
Right.
It gives them a level of power that artists in the past could only dream of.
So what does all this mean for the future of music? Like, what's your take on where we go from here?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, this case could set a precedent that leads to more lawsuits,
Okay.
more caution from labels,
Yeah.
maybe even a chilling effect on certain types of music.
Right.
But it could also lead to a more nuanced understanding of artistic freedom, one that recognizes that you need both creative expression
Right.
and the protection of people's reputations.
It's a tough balance. On one hand, we want to encourage artists to push boundaries, to be provocative, to challenge norms.
Yeah.
But we also have to protect individuals from harm
Right.
and make sure that creative freedom isn't being used as a weapon.
Totally. And I think this case is forcing us to have that conversation on a much bigger scale.
Yeah.
It's not just about Drake and UMG. It's about how we as a society deal with the evolving relationship between art, law, and technology.
This deep dive has been eye-opening. I think what's really sticking with me is this idea that while artistic expression is super important,
Yeah.
it doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Yeah.
It has real-world consequences, and we need to be aware of that,
Right.
both as artists and as the people who enjoy their art.
I agree. And I think the big takeaway for our listeners is this. As you listen to music, engage with art, even just participate in conversations online.
Right.
Think about the power that those words and images hold.
Yeah.
They can be used for good or for bad.
Absolutely.
So be critical about what you're consuming and think about the impact it might have on individuals and on society as a whole.
Well said. Well, that's all the time we have for our deep dive into this whole Drake versus UMG saga. It's a case that's definitely going to have a lasting impact on the music industry and beyond.
For sure.
So thanks for joining us on this journey, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into a topic that's shaping our world.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're Bobby doll. Show them all what